The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the rib. The end of the day, after a busy Thursday yesterday, we had a lot of things going on.
A lot of things went on yesterday, and a lot of things went on Wednesday.
But nobody knows anything because our camouflager in chief doesn't ever bring the public in about things. I learned a few things, but what do you want to cover first,
Well,
CJ?
I read this morning an article in the Herald News about local restaurants and why their prices are going up. Like we don't know. Fuel costs, supply chain issues and whatnot. And Tipsy Toboggan went around and said that they used to charge $20 for a lobster roll. I'm not sure how big their lobster roll is. But yeah,
about an inch and a half long.
But I mean, I've paid $30 for a lobster roll, and I mean, it's been a lobster roll. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, when I went to Maine once, I bought a lobster roll. You can't get a better lobster roll than in Maine.
No better lobster than Maine lobster.
That's right.
I hate to say it. Massachusetts lobster is good, but Maine lobster is incomparable.
Yep. As a matter of fact, didn't Maine do the process now where they tag their lobsters that they're Maine lobsters, just to prevent people from saying we got Maine
because
lobster?
If you go, no matter where you go in the world, if they do serve lobster in places where lobster is not, obviously readily available, they always 98% of them say it's Maine lobster, because Maine lobster is the gold standard for lobster.
Right, it is. And
it's also right now, I think this year, the last time I checked up there, actually my daughter's going up there on vacation, I think in a week or two. They always go for a week, like I always do.
And she brings you back lobster salad.
I don't know if she's going to bring me back. No, she normally brings me back a pound of lobster meat, but last year it was $58 a pound.
Yeah.
I think this year it's $100 a pound.
I believe it.
So, but hey, it is what it is. But they're talking about restaurants, and we got all these other things going on, and we'll get into that. Yeah.
And, they were talking about, how they have to charge 3 times the actual cost for the product to make any money, for the restaurant to break even. And they went that a ketchup packet cost 22 cents. I'm like, 22 cents for a ketchup packet? A bag cost 17 cents. And it drummed up to 92 cents. And they said, so they have to add on to the bill $2.76. And people are complaining. And they're acting as though this inflation is something new. And one waitress, one server, turned around and said that her customers started screaming at her because they said that she rung it up wrong, and she didn't. And what the restaurant did was they took the loss instead of losing the customer, which it happens a lot. But when I saw that the Tipsy Toboggan is charging $32 for a lobster roll, and I have no idea how big it is.
Yeah, well, look, this is a statement on Fall River's lack of restaurants. When the Tipsy Toboggan is the subject of an article, besides the fact that we know who owns the Tipsy Toboggan.
He doesn't anymore. It's
he
now owned
doesn't?
by a guy by the name of Pelletier.
Well, when you go in there and you consider that a place to go for dinner, that's a place where people go down and sit on the water and drink.
Right.
That's not, I mean, we're talking about you want a meal, you go to Federal Hill, or you go to Boston, and you go to Providence, or something like that.
Well, that's something the article talked about as well, because they said that in New Bedford, they've developed a downtown in New Bedford. Now, Paul, I really want you to listen to this, Paul, because you need to understand this. Maybe you should read the article. The businesses in downtown New Bedford work together to continue the foot traffic. Imagine that. And the city works with them on continuing the food traffic to keep downtown New Bedford lively and upbeat.
Yeah, but there's only one problem with that scenario, CJ. The problem with that scenario is that if you go to New Bedford, there's a courthouse there. Where is it? It's not in downtown.
That's right.
Okay, everything they touch in Fall River, it ends up an unmitigated disaster.
Exactly.
They stuck a courthouse in the middle of the downtown area,
Right.
which now it really inhibits any type of development down
That's right.
there, because that's the reality of the situation. Look at the street that we're on now, Ellsbury Street. Look what they did with the traffic patterns. They built a school, giant school. Then they say, okay, all we're worried about is people getting into this school. Now you basically have less than a lane, because the middle lane is for people making a left into
That's
Durfee.
right.
So they basically obliterated that lane for that area. Even though you've got another high school across the street and a college up the street, which they're very, very fortunate right now that we're still on COVID attendance.
Right.
Because when this college, before COVID, you couldn't find a parking place
That's right.
in here at the beginning of every semester.
That's right.
The traffic was horrendous.
Yeah.
And the parking was difficult. So you have all this traffic, and what do they do with the traffic pattern? They obliterate a lane. And now they've got this little tiny bike lane, no breakdown lane. Now when people pull over to drop people off, half the vehicle is in the travel lane.
That's right.
So they actually have to cross over a double line or into the lane it's supposed to be going the other way. And it's a total disaster. But then again, the government never plans anything. I mean, listen.
Well, you know who did that, though, don't you?
Yeah.
That's your friend,
Yeah.
the parking Nazi.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
her,
I mean, look,
that was her board that did
and
that.
it will continue to be a disaster
Right.
forever, because they can't fix anything. The same thing with the school. But look, everything they plan, you give it to the government.
Yeah.
If you want something screwed up, in private industry, it takes one maintenance man to screw in a light bulb. In government, it takes an entire maintenance division with a guy making six figures at the top, 16 assistants, and 15 people to screw the light bulb in.
That's right.
With a truck of their own. So this is the problem. Look at government. What do? Just look at what we had the other day. I mean, if I lived in the town of Somerset, I would be so offended. And they said Auchincloss brought this on, because he's the guy that suggested this. They did nothing but make fun of where Joe Biden was making the speech. Everybody thinks that Somerset is a desolate wasteland.
I know, they do.
I think one of the people that was talking about the speech said it looked like where they dumped the bodies in The Sopranos. Another one said, what did they make him give a speech in a vacant lot? And ironically enough, the only good thing you could say is the highlight of that snapshot of when he was giving a speech was the Braga Bridge. Which is another testament to the incompetence of government. What did it take them, 20 years to paint the Braga Bridge? They can't do anything right.
No.
And they're going to talk about restaurants. The Herald News has got nothing better. They're not going to write about the tent cities. We're going to deal with that.
That's right.
They're not going to write about the motorcycle gangs, the drugs, everything else. They're going to write about the Tipsy Seagull's lobster roll. Talk about misplaced priorities.
Yeah, I agree.
Talk about misplaced priorities. There you are.
You want to know about hypocrisy, though?
Oh, go ahead.
The president comes to Somerset, and every news outlet, like you said that it was nothing but a dusty lot, okay?
Yeah.
And they tried to put out a black rubber mat for the president to step on, probably so he wouldn't fall over.
You probably missed it because there wasn't an X on it.
Exactly. And he was there to talk about climate change and how we need to use electric vehicles and natural...
The other the contract.
Well, here's the thing. They had 32 vehicles in the motorcade.
I know.
Okay? Not one of them was electric.
Of course not.
They all ran on gas.
Joe's got his vintage vet, too.
And remember, he put all of those on 3 planes.
Yeah.
Air Force One and 2 cargo planes.
Yeah.
So all those planes generated carbon emissions.
They're probably C-135s, C-130s. Those are big planes.
Yeah.
They use a lot of fuel. But look at. I mean, that thing was the epitome of the political BS. Because when they showed that shot of them getting off the airplane, what a cast of characters. Joe Biden, a man that's destroyed the entire country in a year and a half. Followed by who?
Pocahontas.
Pocahontas, the phony Indian. Mm-hmm. No, but she wasn't first. I think she was second. The guy who ran on term limits that's been in Washington for 40 years.
Markey. Yep.
So now you got Markey, who ran on term limits, has been there 40 years, done absolutely nothing for 40 years. You got the one, the phony Indian, who's been there forever and has done really nothing except talk a lot about things.
Yep.
And behind them, they had Boofer Boy, the man who didn't know what a boofer was, Sheldon Whitehouse.
Yeah.
Talk about a guy that shows you that's what we got. Rich people who don't identify with the place that they're standing in. Mm-hmm. And then Auchincloss, the guy that opened the doors for Colbert's 9, who didn't get prosecuted, while we got people spending a year and a half in jail without bail for doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
you hear how...
this is the epitome, though. This is the epitome of it. And what were they talking about? Talking about the jobs, the green energy. This is the future. Sri Lanka's, they're having a violent overthrow of the government in Sri Lanka. Europe's going back to fossil fuel because it doesn't work. You can't have 100% green energy. They're all invested in it. We don't even, the American media even suppresses world news.
Yeah.
So we don't know that the rest of the world has figured out that this stuff does not work.
Right.
It can't be your primary source of energy.
Right.
It'll take us, at the rate the government goes, probably 250 years for us to get a grid, and we can't support it.
Right.
Because if everybody charges their car, it'll just wipe out the grid.
And that's one of the big complaints about the
and you
electric
know what
vehicles.
one of them said? Remember the great thing. You don't like it, take a bus,
Yep.
get rid of your car, kill your dog.
Yep.
Take. That's the attitude. Now they said, well, if we start having these problems, you can't run your air conditioners. Go sleep in the basement because it's cooler.
Yeah, why not?
No, who cares about the poor people? But they're not going to be worrying about sleeping. They're not going to have a basement.
But
they're going to be in
remember-
tents.
But remember, this is an environmental crisis. This is a crisis.
Yeah.
We are at code red status.
Oh, yeah, we're
code red status. Remember that. Oh, and by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's our boy. Sheldon, that's right. Sheldon Boofer Boy was standing on well, it's not the tarmac. He was standing on the tarmac at
Yep.
Warwick. Yeah, that's
Yep.
right. Sheldon Boofer Boy wasn't in. Let me see. It was Markey.
Warren, Markey,
Auchincloss.
and
There was one other one.
Yeah, I
think.
can't remember.
It was a peripheral kind
Yeah.
of. Yeah, one of the. But it's irrelevant. What's relevant is they're trying to sell us a bill of goods, just like they. We're going to get this. This is our. They're trying to sell you a bill of goods like they did with the vaccine.
Yep.
Now there's been a report released that they're suppressing, even though it was in the report by two major medical research facilities, that they've done a study and they said that everybody, but especially people in Biden's age group, when they studied them, their immune system was 80% less effective as the people who didn't get vaccinated, that this vaccine actually suppresses your immune system. And they showed it, what
Yep.
they said in the report, but they deleted it out of the text. The only way you could find it was go to the graph and look at the graph for the immune system.
Right.
Then you saw the difference in the immune system response.
Right.
It depresses your immune system because they've not only destroyed the economy, they've destroyed medical. Nobody trusts doctors anymore because you got these people lying to you all the time. The reality is that we all know this. We know what happened with superbacterias and superviruses.
That's right.
Viruses. They overprescribed antibiotics.
That's right.
So we realize, most of us, except maybe the people who work in government, because they don't, they eat $15 a pint ice cream. We don't care. But the fact is that, look what they're doing. They get these things and they say, well, this is the way it is, but they're lying all the time. They suppress the evidence. Then they say, well, tips should have been, they're not going to release any data for 75 years. They made them immune to lawsuits.
Right.
So now in Europe, there's a study that says 1 out of every 5,000 people in Germany, I think, had an adverse reaction, a serious adverse reaction. So if you take that with the population of the United States, it would mean 100,000 people. So this is the kind of stuff your government does to you. You fundamentally can't trust anything they say. And where are they pushing green energy? Not in Maki's backyard.
No, they're not.
They're not pushing any. They didn't push green energy and windmills down when Kennedy was alive, because he advocated for that stuff. And as soon as they tried to put it in the Cape, like Maki, you're out of here.
That's right.
You're not putting it in my backyard.
That's right.
NIMBY it is.
Guess who else's backyard it's not in? Nancy Pelosi.
Of course.
They
Keating.
can't put it.
It was Keating, the guy I can't ever
Keating.
remember.
Yeah, I
that guy's been up there for so long, and he's a non-entity.
Exactly.
I've never heard that guy's name
Yep.
ever, and I've never seen him at a hearing.
Right.
It's like he doesn't exist.
Right,
Thank you.
right.
Thank you, caller.
Yep.
I
But-
don't know. It was Keating, and Keating's the guy that. Remember, I was trying to remember the name, and you said you quizzed me on it. I said I have no idea.
Exactly.
I can't remember. This guy, I got a mental block because you never.
I couldn't remember him. I couldn't remember him the other day either.
Had to look it up.
Yeah, it's just
But
amazing.
look, enough of our government's government's
Well, no,
deception.
we're gonna go into a little bit more on government, because guess what we have in Fall River?
Oh, I'm talking about the federal
Oh,
government.
the federal government.
Oh, yeah.
Guess what we have in Fall River?
With tent cities.
10 cities.
10 cities.
Imagine that. And what did we say? You can't pay the rent?
Get a tent. I didn't mean for you to take us literally. Jesus, take it easy. You took us literally.
Yeah.
No, there was a drug overdose.
Yes, there was.
And by the way, the information that was given to some people was inaccurate. They said there was only one medical examiner,
Correct.
SUV, and that is incorrect because I called you. Mm-hmm. When I got off the ramp on Brayton Avenue, coming in from the gym in Tiverton, there were three, not one, three SUVs that said, and I still do have fairly good reading comprehension, and I can read English. It is my first language. They said, Commonwealth of Massachusetts medical examiner. 3 of them, not one. And I went, whoa, what is going on? You had 3 SUVs that said Commonwealth of Massachusetts medical examiner. You had 2 other black SUVs that were basically, and you had some Fall River police cruisers. Yep. The entire, from almost the off-ramp all the way up to the walking trail was full of black SUVs. So I thought there was obviously it was a serious issue, but I thought there was a major problem because 3 medical MEs, I'm saying, wow, they got a bunch of bodies, but apparently it turned out to be 1 overdose. But then the other thing that came out, and of course this is what we've been told, these are allegedly, there's a tent city there.
Yep.
Which they supposedly at one time got rid of, and now it's back. And then there's another tent city on the North Watuppa.
Correct.
So we have tent cities cropping up. So how are people going to feel knowing there's a tent city down there on a walking trail? What's going to happen someday? We don't know what. I mean, and nobody knows about this.
Right.
Nobody knows. We didn't know this. Then of course we go into the raids on the motorcycle gangs and the crime we always talk about that our mayor he pretends it doesn't exist. We have the ostrich mayor. He goes up there, and when he leaves City Hall, when he goes home, he sticks his head in the yard, down in the ground like an ostrich, and pretends everything's wonderful. We live in Newton. Mm-hmm. You know, this is Valhalla, but tent cities.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We don't have tent cities in the summer, but in the winter, we pay to have people go out and go through all of these tent cities to make sure people are safe
Yep.
and warm, and to provide them with shelter.
That's because we don't have them.
That's right, we don't have them.
That's right. That's
But
why we check on them.
We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get them out of the tents in the winter and put them in the shelters.
Again, you can't listen. Nobody's saying that it's right now. It's virtually unavoidable. The sad part is it's not going to be the drug addicts and the people with issues, with substance abuse issues, that are going to be having the tent cities. It's going to be the people who can't make their rent anymore.
That's right.
This is the problem that our mayor cannot understand. Well, I think he does understand it. He just wants to ignore it because he doesn't care. Let them eat cake syndrome. But the fact is that this is a problem. And the problem that gets back to one thing, lack of transparency, another thing that he ran on. Full-time mayor not being ceremonial, but apparently everything he does is ceremonial. And the other thing he ran on was transparency. He's been the least transparent mayor in the history of this city. Nobody knows to this day what's happening with the opera money.
Right.
Nobody knows what goes on in all these committee meetings, and he's also the deflector in chief. Not my job.
No.
That's the trash committee. Oh no, that's the committee on bow ties. I got a committee on everything, and it's not my job. Apparently, you forgot that, and you're the mayor. You forgot Harry Truman's adage: "The buck stops there." You're the CEO. People, you should be handling this crisis, not Catholic Social Services. You should be running point. There should be a city response, a place where people who are facing the biggest crisis in the United States at this time, a nationwide crisis, a crisis that all the way down from the federal government to the state government, to the gubernatorial candidates, all understand we have an unaffordability problem for housing, not for the poor, but for people on fixed income and people of moderate income. It is nationwide now. And remember, Fall River demographically is one of the poorest socioeconomic cities in the country. There was an old adage that when Massachusetts gets a cold, Fall River gets pneumonia.
That's right.
Well, the problem is the rest of the country is facing what people in Fall River are doing, and those people are a lot better off because remember, Fall River's household income and their per capita income is about half of the state average and half of the national average. So how do you expect people to absorb this? But they don't. But what did they say? What was said? Go live where?
Go live in Russia.
Or just move out, or
just move out. Go live in New Bedford or Brockton.
That's right. Let them go live in New Bedford or Brockton and eat cake.
That's right. That's right.
I just added that at the end.
And just so people know, on Wednesday, upcoming Wednesday, there will be a meeting at Cattell Heights on Pleasant Street across from the post office. You can park in the post office parking lot to deal specifically with affordable housing. Affordable housing, not market rate housing, affordable housing. So if you want your voice to be heard, please show up at that meeting. It's going to be at 6:30 on Wednesday. So it should be an interesting meeting. I know you can't be there, Chip, and you're frustrated at that.
I am very frustrated. I really want to be there, but
Yeah.
I know that our man of affordable housing, Nelson, and you will be there.
Yep.
And I hope the people who were at the last meeting are there, and I hope they make it clear that we don't want to hear excuses. We want to see plans.
Right.
We don't want to. I got $4.9 million, and would you please explain to our mayor, since we're talking about this, will you please explain to him again the difference between public housing and affordable housing?
Oh, of course, of course. This is the big problem. He confuses them. Okay, the law does not dictate affordable housing. The law dictates public housing. Public housing is subsidized housing, like Section 8 certificates, like housing projects that are managed and handled by a central authority, by a central agency, in this case, the Fall River Housing Authority. Affordable housing is private industry, like Peabody Properties. They do it. There are other companies that do it. They turn around and they get tax money and tax breaks to have affordable housing. And that money gets them 10, 20, or 30 years of units that are specifically for affordable housing. Sometimes they get low or no interest loans to maintain that. So they know they're still making money off of it, but they make it affordable to you. So instead of paying $1,200 for rent, you're paying maybe $600 or $300 or $400. It just depends on what your base income is. And it's only eligible for people who are 60 or 80% of the median income.
Yep.
That's it. That is not subsidized housing. That's affordable housing.
Yeah.
Subsidized housing, you got to go through the whole process. You got to present your incomes. You got to get recertified every year. A lot of that happens in affordable housing too. But subsidized housing is a little stricter because the federal government is what's paying for it, and the state government.
Thank you for that very concise and clear explanation. Now, you said something very important in that explanation that apparently the mayor doesn't understand, and I just actually referred to that before I heard your explanation. Based on that criteria, the majority of people in Fall River are eligible.
Correct.
Because, as I said, our household income is less than half or around half of the median state income. Reality is if it's 60% or 80%, you're going to see a lot of people that are qualified.
That's right.
And it's totally incomprehensible to me how anybody can be that insensitive. But then again, if you bailed out as soon as you left the school department and went and lived in Somerset, where the average income is about 89, not 43, so that's, a lot more, obviously, right? 43 and 43 is 86, so it's twice.
Yep.
You're living in a town where the average income is twice the median average here. I guess you lose perspective.
You must have went to the Fall River school system when it actually worked, because you can do math.
Yeah. So he said, he doesn't know numbers, but apparently he doesn't know the suffering of the average person in Fall River. That's the key.
The worst part about it is he made his living in the public school system.
Yeah.
Which has approximately 76% of the student population qualifying for free lunch and breakfast. Okay? That's because they are on welfare, food stamps, and their income is so low that they qualify for it. Even reduced lunch and dinner, breakfast, are the same thing. They're reduced incomes. So it's just amazing how he working in the school system for over 20 years, can't see that these children are attached to adults in the community.
Well, you can become oblivious to that when you're walking around with your hands in your pocket, your head up your derriere, and you're making six figures. You don't really care about the great unwashed. So that's the problem we have. We have somebody that's totally insensitive. We have a class war here, rich versus poor. And not even poor. We're talking about working people.
Right.
So, but if you don't work for the city, you don't get a $19,000 pay raise.
Or a $4,000 pay raise, or a $3,000 premium pay, or get all of these great perks that everyone else has. Plus, when you look at what healthcare costs, I mean, working for the city, they've got a pretty good deal with their healthcare.
Very good.
They got to, and I know you know that because you worked on negotiating that. But the mayor keeps trying to destroy it by sending you over to the GIC. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for watching. Please stay cool this weekend. This heat wave is going to last until about Monday or Tuesday. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday.
And Saturday and Sunday is supposed to...